I think if this video, if not this very independent news organization that you're watching right now could prove anything, it is the very fact that you could both be against the fake mainstream horse-stream prostitute fake news media and at the same time be able to criticize Donald Trump for the legitimate horrible policies that he is pushing on the rest of the world. Those two are not exclusive to each other, and it's okay to be against both of them. It's okay to think for yourself and not to have to pick a side, because hopefully, as this news broadcast will show you, both of the sides suck huge major donkey balls. Now today is June 27, 2017, and in this news report we will be talking about the expose on CNN that hopefully will lead to its spiral into non-existence, and Donald Trump's memo that is pushing us towards World War III. Now the most important story that I want to talk about today is how the United States saying it is preparing for another supposed, quote, Syrian chemical attack. Now, Donald Trump's press secretary today released a very ominous statement talking about the potential of the Syrian government using chemical weapons, how there's supposed intelligence to prove this, and if the Syrian government does this under President Assad, that he and his military will, quote, pay a very heavy price. Now, this statement that was released today shows how the Trump administration is lying through their teeth, but most importantly, the State Department didn't even know that the White House was releasing this statement, showing how Donald Trump is acting on his own accord by allowing his own press secretary to release this statement. Now, I think it's important to go into this statement and show you one by one the major lies that the Trump administration is saying. Now, this statement is very important to examine because it states if there is another chemical weapons attack by the Assad regime, that this would result in the mass murder of civilians, including innocent children. Now, that is a damn lie. Trump's assault on supposedly ISIS has been mainly targeting civilians in that region, including many children that the United States is dropping bombs on right now. If the United States cared about children, they would not be working in collaboration with Saudi Arabia, bombing Yemen right now, and helping create the worst humanitarian crisis on this planet right now, directly because of Donald Trump's foreign policy actions with Saudi Arabia. The United States does not give a damn about children, but they're pretending to do so, releasing this statement in order to justify more military actions of them killing more innocent children. This is insane. The statement reads, quote, the activities are similar to preparations the regime made before its April 4th, 2017 chemical weapons attack. Now, if you remember, it was Ivanka Trump, the wife of Jared Kushner, who influenced Donald Trump in order to launch military strikes against the Syrian government because she supposedly saw a video of innocent children hurt from an alleged chemical weapons attack inside of Syria. Meanwhile, that chemical weapons attack that Trump is using in his statement right now to justify the future plans for an attack against Syria, Russia, China, and Iran, that chemical weapons attack was never investigated. The United States never even waited to find out what exactly happened and launched bombs anyway. And previously, before even the United Nations accused the Syrian rebels and radical Islamic terrorists that are fighting against the Syrian governments for using chemical weapons. And the most probable thing that happened during this supposed first chemical weapons attack that the United States is mentioning now is that the Syrian government bombed a rebel chemical weapons depot, and then because that depot was bombed with the rebels who had the chemical weapons, it spread throughout that town and affected the people in it. The United States did not investigate, did not want to find out what exactly happened, but used this as a justification to previously bomb the Syrian government and its air force. The Syrian government on some instances has even been complying and removing their chemical weapons, and this is even according to the Wall Street Journal, and honestly, whether they have chemical weapons or not, it is unknown. But the question has to be asked, why would President Assad, with the forces of the Iranians and Russians and support of the Chinese, who were defeating radical Islamic terrorists, the rebel groups, and ISIS inside of their country, repelling them, why would he jeopardize that when he was defeating the jihadists and allow the United States an excuse to get into this war to fight against them? Strategically, geopolitically, it makes no sense at all, and there was no incentive for him to use the chemical weapon. Now, to make the situation worse, UN Ambassador to Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, just tweeted that, quote, any further actions done to the people of Syria will be blamed on Assad, but also on Russia and Iran, who support him killing his own people. Which ultimately, if you take the word for what it is, this is a perfect strategy for radical Islamic terrorists now, because all ISIS has to do, all Al-Qaeda has to do, all the rebel groups, All they have to do right now is stage a chemical weapons attack, say that it was the Assad regime, and then the United States will come in, bomb Assad, do a complete regime change, kick him out of office, and allow these very terrorists that have been setting off terrorist attacks all over the world to have complete control of the country. In translation, she's saying we are moving forward with regime change right now, and the consequences of those actions will be disastrous. We already saw what happened in Iraq, in Libya, in Afghanistan, the failed states, the radical Islamic terrorism that bred and grew from U.S. intervention, and the United States is still continuing with this plan. And the only person who makes sense down in Washington, D.C. is Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who just came out and said that the media establishment are pushing for a regime change, but are ignoring the grander consequences behind this. By the way, she's also the same congresswoman who proposed the Stop Arming Terrorists law in the United States that only had 13 members of U.S. representatives vote for it. So yeah, only 13 members of our government are against the United States directly sponsoring and financing radical Islamic terrorist groups. That is the reality of the picture that you won't hear on the mainstream media that have been working in collusion with the deep state in order to push for more war, more regime change, more expansion of radical Islamic terrorism, more rebel groups, more problems for all of us, while they sit back and create this problem reaction solution dialect that allows them to have more power. And the ultimate conclusion of Donald Trump's policies are only empowering Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now, it's important to understand here, how will the Russians respond? Of course, they won't take this sitting down, and they're publicly saying that this U.S. warning over Syrian chemical weapons is unacceptable. The Russians just a few days ago warned that the United States that they would shoot down U.S. airplanes after the U.S. military targeted Syrian planes that were bombing ISIS, and already a U.S. drone was shot out of the skies over Syria. The Syrians are warning Israel after Israel has been acting like the Air Force for the rebel groups and radical Islamic terrorists, saying that the Syrians will respond if the Israeli military keeps attacking the Syrian military when they're trying to defeat these rebel groups. U.S. jets just weeks ago attacked Iranian-backed militiamen who are fighting against radical Islamic terrorists. And even the Belgian Air Force is announcing that they're leaving the U.S. coalition, and also the Australians who are leaving the U.S. coalition because they do not want war with Russia. And even though Belgium and Australia see this potential risk of a global conflict between the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Syrian rebels versus China, Russia, Iran, and the Syrian government, they're leaving, but the United States still, for some reason, is threatening Syria, Russia, and Iran with war. And the alliances here are very clear, with major implications for geopolitical standing between the world's biggest superpowers. And I think I have to say this again to clarify. The Chinese are supporting the Syrian government. The Russians are fighting with the Syrian military alongside the Iranians. On the other side of this, they are fighting the rebels that are being supported by Israel, the United States, and Saudi Arabia. These are two major factions that the United States right now, with their memo, is laying down the groundwork and ultimately trying to get justification for a greater war here. This is exactly what today's memo was. Now, I also wanted to mention this because there's a lot of fake independent alternative news people out there who claim that Donald Trump still has good intentions. They're still making excuses for him. They're saying that this is all just H.R. McMaster and this is not Trump calling the shots. And I have to say, those people are either knowingly naive or they are knowingly lying to you. There's no way you could blame this on the globalist national security advisor to Donald Trump, H.R. McMaster, who Donald Trump picked and selected himself after firing Michael Flynn, who was his former national security advisor, who didn't want war with Russia. He put H.R. McMaster in there when he knew he wanted war with Russia. This statement came directly from the White House, from Donald Trump's own press secretary, and all of his actions previously before, which we have documented to you on this channel repeatedly, shows that the agenda is very clear towards more war. But you won't hear that on the mainstream media, which brings us to the second most important story that happened today, and that is an incredible Project Veritas investigative piece that exposed the inner workings of CNN and finally proved something that I've been talking about for a very long time on this channel, that most of the Russian Trump stories are fake, complete, quote, bull expletive and used in order to get revenue. The video is astonishing and will be in the description below.
Because it's ratings.
Because it's ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
It's mostly bullshit right now.
Like, we don't have any big giant proof.
Project Veritas actually got a main executive CNN producer on hidden camera admitting that the stories are bull, expletive, and used to have ratings. We've been telling you, this has been a major distraction away from the major issues, and finally, with the great work of Project Veritas, this is proved. And this is not the only hot water that CNN is in, as they just had 3 journalists resign over another fake Russian story that they ran from an anonymous source that proved to be untrue. And I really think this is criminal because as the mainstream media, as CNN was obsessing about this non-existent Russian-Trump collusion, they've been allowing Donald Trump to get away with horrible geopolitical foreign policy moves that have caused the suffering of hundreds of thousands of people all around this world, and could potentially lead to a bigger disaster. Now, of course, CNN is offering retractions, but we are also seeing internal emails of their executive editor demanding full review of all future Russian-related stories with no exception. And what I ultimately hope happens from all of this is that we could finally see the destruction of CNN, as they have been proven time and time again as being utter complete fake news. Hopefully they lose all their legitimacy, their whole entire audience, their whole entire platform, and we could see the rise of real alternative media take their place by doing their job better. I may be a little bit optimistic, but that's what I hope for. And if you believe in that idea, check out patreon.com/wearechange. Because as real independent media, we rely on your sponsorship, your donations, in order to keep this independent news organization running. And it would not be possible if it wasn't for amazing human beings like you who watch this video, who share this video, and also donate at least $1 or $5 once a month to allow us to be here and do the real important work that needs to be done. If you believe in an idea like I do, and that we could someday take over the mainstream media and be better than them, support us, because we are always going to be here standing up and fighting for the real issues that matter in this world.